Stronger pro-life bills to battle abortion. A pro-life bill called the Arkansas Unborn Child Protection Act, SB 6, that bans nearly all abortions except to save the life of the mother in a medical emergency and does not include exceptions for rape and incest, has been approved by the Arkansas legislature and was signed by Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson on Tuesday, March 9, 2021. Abortion is the termination of an unborn child or a fetus. Pro-life supporters hope the measure will encourage the U.S. Supreme Court to revisit its decision on Roe v. Wade, the 1973 landmark case in which the court created a right to abortion. In a statement on the signing of the bill, which is stricter on banning abortions than ever, the Republican governor said he would sign it because of overwhelming legislative support and his sincere and long-held pro-life convictions. SB 6 is in contradiction of binding precedents of the U.S. Supreme Court, but it is the intention of the legislation to set the stage for the Supreme Court overturning current case law. I would have preferred the legislation to include the exceptions for rape and incest, which has been my consistent view, and such exceptions would increase the chances for a review by the U.S. Supreme Court. Roe v. Wade was a case in 1973 brought by a Texas woman under the pseudonym Jane Roe against Henry Wade, the district attorney of Dallas County. She said Texas laws making abortion largely illegal violated her constitutional rights. In a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court justices said the Texas laws were unconstitutional. The court ruled that the U.S. Constitution protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction.
The Supreme Court today ruled that abortion is completely a private matter,
thus dramatically expanding access to abortion. It struck down many U.S. federal and state abortion laws and prompted an ongoing national debate in the United States: pro-life versus pro-choice. Since the decision, restrictions on abortions during the first trimester have been repeatedly struck down, including laws fighting selections against fetuses with Down syndrome or ones of a certain gender. Public polling shows most Americans back restrictions on abortion in the second and third trimesters, amid attempts by some lawmakers to make abortion up until birth legal for all pregnant women. In response to Roe v. Wade, most states enacted or attempted to enact laws limiting or regulating abortion. In 1976, Congress passed the Hyde Amendment, blocking federal funds, namely Medicaid, from being used to pay for abortions unless the mother's life is in danger or the pregnancy resulted from rape or incest. The Hyde Amendment is not a permanent statute, but exists by being added to federal spending bills every year, with occasional changes to the list of exceptions. Over the past 4 years, the Trump administration enacted pro-life policies and laws. As part of his administration's efforts, Trump called for defunding Planned Parenthood and late-term abortions.
To defend the dignity of every person, I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb. Let us work together to build a culture that cherishes innocent life. And let us reaffirm a fundamental truth. All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God.
Trump also nominated 3 pro-life judges to the Supreme Court. On January 17, 2021, President Donald Trump said in a proclamation that the landmark Supreme Court decision is constitutionally flawed. This month, we mark nearly 50 years since the United States Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision. This constitutionally flawed ruling overturned state laws that banned abortion and has resulted in the loss of more than 50 million innocent lives, he said. Trump's proclamation was for the National Sanctity of Human Life Day. In it, he also said, "As a nation, restoring a culture of respect for the sacredness of life is fundamental to solving our country's most pressing problems. When each person is treated as a beloved child of God, individuals can reach their full potential, communities will flourish, and America will be a place of even greater hope and freedom." That is why it was my profound privilege to be the first president in history to attend the March for Life, and it is what motives my actions to improve our nation's adoption and foster care system, secure more funding for Down syndrome research, and expand health services for single mothers. According to the World Health Organization, more than 73 million unborn children were killed in abortions every year between 2015 and 2019. Americans overwhelmingly oppose using taxpayer dollars to fund abortions abroad. A January 2017 Marist poll found that 83% opposed or strongly opposed using tax dollars to support abortion in other countries. That figure reflects overall opposition among Americans to unrestricted abortion. Only 16% said abortion should be available to a woman anytime during her entire pregnancy. During his first days in office in 2017, President Trump reinstated and expanded the ban on U.S. funding for international nonprofits that provide counseling or referrals for abortion, known as the Mexico City policy. The policy was first announced in 1984 during the Reagan administration.
I have also reinstated the Mexico City policy, first put into place by Ronald Reagan to protect the unborn,
requiring non-governmental organizations to certify that they will not perform or actively promote abortion as a method of family planning in order to receive U.S. taxpayer money for global health initiatives. The policy has been rescinded and reinstated along party lines since. It had previously been rescinded by President Obama before Trump's reinstatement. Trump's expanded ban affected approximately $7.3 billion in U.S. global health aid, according to an estimate by the Kaiser Family Foundation. Again, on January 28th, Joe Biden signed a presidential memorandum rescinding the ban, rolling back the so-called Mexico City policy. On January 22nd, 2 days after taking the White House, the Biden administration made the announcement that it is committed to codifying Roe v. Wade and appointing judges that respect foundational precedents like Roe. For decades, when he was a Delaware senator and then Obama's vice president, Biden supported the Hyde Amendment.
Is that for many years as U.S. Senator, I've supported the Hyde Amendment like many others have.
But he reversed this stance in 2019 during his presidential campaign. He told a crowd at an event that year,
"If I believe health care is a right as I do, I can no longer support an amendment that makes that right dependent on someone's zip code."
On January 26th, 200 House Republicans signed a letter to House and Senate leaders, vowing to reject House Democrats' effort to toss out the Hyde Amendment or any federal funding bill that allows coverage of abortion. On February 5th, Senator Steve Daines, founder and chairman of the Senate Pro-Life Caucus, sent a letter with 47 other senators to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, promising to oppose legislation that would fund abortion without the inclusion of the Hyde Amendment or similar pro-life protections. Abortion is not health care. Rather, it is a brutal procedure that destroys the life of an innocent unborn child. The Hyde Amendment reflects a consensus that millions of pro-life Americans who are profoundly opposed to abortion should not be coerced into paying for it or incentivizing it with their taxpayer dollars, the letter reads. Recently, the Hyde Amendment was excluded from the Democrats' $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package. On March 7th, pro-life evangelicals for Joe Biden wrote an open letter to the president, telling him that they were very disappointed about the exclusion and felt used and betrayed.
It was a signal that the extreme wing within the Democratic Party is really determining the agenda. We felt betrayed by the fact that, furthermore, they did not give us a heads up on this. There was no sense of accountability to evangelicals and Catholics who took a lot of risks in saying publicly that they were going to vote for Mr. Biden. Some of the things that Mr. Biden has said have been very moving, but at the same time, some of his actions seem to go against that.
We're even more upset that the Biden administration is supporting this bill. As pro-life leaders in the evangelical community, we publicly supported President Biden's candidacy with the understanding that there would be engagement with us on the issue of abortion and particularly the Hyde Amendment. Joseph Naumann, Kansas City Archbishop, said in a recent interview, "The president should stop defining himself as a devout Catholic and acknowledge that his view on abortion is contrary to Catholic moral teaching." He added, "It would be a more honest approach from him to say he disagreed with his church on this important issue and that he was acting contrary to church teaching." According to a study from authors at the University of Utah, state legislators have enacted more than 250 abortion-related laws in 45 states in the past few years. Of the laws enacted between January 2017 and November 2020, 88.7% restricted access to abortion services. The laws ranged from funding constraints and restrictions for physicians to waiting periods for patients and gestational limits. Some would trigger a complete ban on abortions if Roe v. Wade were to be overturned. This year, there have been even tougher measures being proposed to prevent abortions from happening. Texas State Representative Brian Slayton has introduced a proposal that would enable prosecutors in the state to seek the death penalty for women who have abortions. Today, I filed HB 3326 to abolish abortion in Texas. The bill will end the discriminatory practice of terminating the life of innocent children and will guarantee the equal protection of the laws to all Texans, no matter how small, the lawmaker wrote on Twitter on March 9. Formerly known as the Abolition of Abortion Through Equal Protection for All Unborn Children Act, the bill states that Texas is a free and independent state and that the sanctity of innocent human life created in the image of God should be equally protected from fertilization to natural death.
This session, we need a law that ensures that the life of every child will be spared from the ravages of abortion.
Part of the legislation would direct the state attorney general to use the existing criminal code against people who perform or have abortions, including laws against criminal homicide. In Texas, homicide can be punished by the death penalty. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, more than 55,000 abortions were performed in Texas in 2018, the most recent year for which figures were available. It is time for Texas to protect the natural right to life for the tiniest and most innocent Texans, and this bill does just that, Slayton said in a statement. It's time Republicans make it clear that we actually think abortion is murder.